Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books. Today we're going to be examining how many more books I have bought now that a whole nother month has gone by. I actually ended up with quite a few more books in April because I don't even know how. I just kept buying them, which I guess isn't really that big of a surprise. I did acquire a couple of review copies, but not that many. I think just 2 for April, which is actually, no, I did receive another one. 3, don't let me forget that. So I'm gonna start with, I would say audiobooks, but I only bought 1 audiobook in April. Isn't that surprising? So let's discuss that first. I subscribe to Audible, if you don't know that, so every month I get myself a whole new audiobook, which is very exciting. I'm not an affiliate or anything like that. I just goddamn love audiobooks. So the audiobook I picked for April was Scarlet by whomever is on the bottom of that cover, because I cannot remember for the life of me. This is actually a book I've had on my wish list for a really long time. It is a gender swapped retelling of Robin Hood, so I mean, why aren't we all reading it? That sounds bloody brilliant. I don't know why this isn't super popular. I discovered this years ago, and I have been meaning to pick up a copy of it, but I think at one point it was either out of print or just out of stock everywhere, and I never managed to get my hands on a copy of it. So when I listen to the audiobook, and it is done by a British narrator, and I am incredibly fussy when it comes to narrators. I kid you not, I will only listen to British or some, but very few American accents. I don't know what's wrong with me. So this has a British narrator, which ticks the box there, and yeah, gender swap retelling of Robin Hood, what more could you want? So I am absolutely looking forward to reading this, and I'm so excited about it. Would love to know if anyone else has read it. Like, no one else seems to ever talk about this book, so let's make it popular. I will then move on to arcs, and I'm going to start with the one that I nearly forgot. So that is a really good question. So because of the whole COVID situation, a lot of publishers, or a handful of publishers, have made e-galleys available on NetGalley for reviewers, so that they're not having, whether it's just because they're unmanned in the office or that they're not having to actually send physical items out to reviewers. So I was really excited because I've been approved to read the sequel to The Eyes of Tambura, which is The City of Zerdai. Ta-da! This is the second in what I assume will be a trilogy of Maria V. Snyder's. It is one of 2 series that she is concurrently writing that nobody is talking about. Why is nobody talking about these books? Can I please remind you that Maria V. Snyder wrote the Poison Study series? You know, that one that you read about like 5 or 10 years ago and you absolutely loved? And then nobody talked about Maria V. Snyder since? Why is that? What happened? She's written so many amazing books, this series being one of them. I read the first book. I was sent the first book last year when it came out, and I loved it. It was so good. It was fantastic. It's all this fantasy setting, and you've got the water prince and some other weird character, and they all live under the ground because the world has gone and it's too hot. It's too hot to live on the surface. It's all deserts. They literally live underground, and the richer you are, the further underground you are, because that means the closer you are to the water table. Now, our main character is quite poor, and she is sun-kissed, which means she has blonde hair, and it's like a sort of superstitious stuff going on there surrounding her birth circumstances that makes her an outcast, and she lives right near the top, which means she can't actually be in her apartment for certain parts of the day when it's too warm. There's so much going on with this book. There are so many other plot lines that are going on, and there's a fantastic romance that is written for fans of Rhysand from A Court of Thorns and Roses. That is all I'm going to say. So if you guys haven't read this yet, I'm just saying you really need to, and I'm very, very, very excited to read the sequel. And what is even more exciting, I'm planning on actually getting a Kindle because of all of this, so that I have an e-reader, because reading this off my phone is just not working for me. Then I received 2 other books, which I'm not entirely sure are advance copies. I think these actually came out last year. So the first one is Crossings by Alexander Landragin? Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that. First of all, what an amazing cover. I love how voodoo-y and weird this looks. So what happened is, this is actually coming from Pen Macmillan, so thank you so much for providing me a copy of this. They have been promoting a travel the world through books whilst everyone is stuck at home. So this series, this book is actually set in Paris. So this was the book that they had up for France and Paris. Now this does sound a little bit strange. It is about 3 different stories, and they all sort of interweave, and it is historical fiction as well. The premise to this is we have a Parisian bookbinder who comes across a manuscript, and it contains the 3 stories that make up this book. The first one is a letter penned by the poet Charles Baudelaire. Now I don't know anything about Baudelaire, but I do know that name. I don't know if it's something similar to the series of unfortunate events, or if that is actually a name I just happen to know, I'm unsure. The second one is called City of Ghosts, and it's a noir romance set in Paris in 1940. And the third is called Tales of the Albatross, and it is an autobiography of a deathless enchantress. So I just think this sounds super strange, super different, and it's not too big, and it has a wonderful cover. So obviously I was hooked on this one because that's pretty much the only prerequisites you need to sell me a book. The other book that they sent me was A Universe of Sufficient Size by Miriam Sved, and I just love this title, A Universe of Sufficient Size. That just sounds so pompous, ridiculous, and weird. So this is actually set in Budapest, which is really exciting because I have never read a book set in Budapest, and it's one place I would love to travel to. But it is a slightly strange premise, but I really think I'm going to like it. So this is set in 2 different times, and the part that's set in 1938 in Budapest, it follows 5 Jewish mathematicians. It does then have a current perspective, which is set in Sydney in 2007. I think they connect the 2 stories through a notebook that she finds, like the main character from the Sydney time. This is actually inspired by a true story as well. I think it will be really exciting to explore characters that lived in Hungary during this time because I really don't know a whole lot about it. I know that not a lot of people have heard of this. This again did come out last year, so I am excited to bring this to your attention because I think this is going to be well worth the read. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the books that I bought myself, which means we're going to be looking at some YA fantasy because this has been a revelation of mine. I seem to consent so much historical fiction. And don't get me wrong, I love historical fiction, but I am keen as a bean for some more fantasy in my life. So in April I found myself at the local bookstore Dymocks twice, and both times I came away with books because what can I say? So the first time that I went, I managed to snag a copy of Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Now this book has been all the rage on Instagram. There was so much hype about this when this first came out, and I have been really in love with the cover. Now this is a YA fantasy that involves seamstressing, tailoring, so what is that called? That sort of thing, sewing, and it is giving me The Bells vibes because of that whole, I don't know, beauty sort of aspect. So I'm really curious how this is going to go down, and I've heard a lot of really good things about it as well. So I probably don't need to tell you too much about this book because I imagine some of you are probably already quite familiar with this, but I would definitely recommend going and checking this out if you haven't heard of it because it is meant to be a really good YA fantasy. The second time I went into the store, because there was like nobody shopping, Dymocks was having a sale on and they had a whole table of books for $5. Naturally, there was absolutely no way I was going to walk out of there empty-handed. So the first book that I found was The Disasters by M.K. England. Now I have heard mixed things, and when I say mixed things, I've mostly heard bad reviews about this book. But it was $5 and I've always been curious. This is one of these books where I know a lot of other people haven't really liked it for various reasons and it didn't really take off, but I really like the cover. I really love the tagline. It sounds really funny. Space is hard, grab a helmet, and I just think that this is going to be a fun read. So this is going to be a book that I am going to read when I'm in a reading slump or I need some light relief because I am convinced that if I read this at the right time, when I'm in the right mood, that I will enjoy this book. I will prove all of you wrong. So the main character, Nax, is on the Ellis Station Academy and he is kicked out of it after 24 hours of being there, which is like an achievement. So he's on his one-way trip back to Earth, but then there's a terrorist attack on the academy and they just escape, but they're also the only witnesses to the whole thing, and it's this whole concept about them being the perfect scapegoats. So I don't really know what to expect from this, but I'm hoping that laughter will be betwixt its pages. So that brings us to the final book that I managed to buy in April, and that is Court of Fives by Kate Elliott. I'm really excited about this book, guys. This is another book that has been on my TBR, just like Scarlet has, for a really long time. I have a book depository wish list, and I have some books that have been at the very top of that for years and years and years, because when I first added them, they were more popular, and now that they're not so readily available, and they're often out of stock. So when I saw this on the $5 table at Dymocks, there was no need to convince me. I need this book. This is about 5 different kingdoms. It is a YA fantasy, and the fact that there are 5 different kingdoms with a conflict is literally enough to make you want to pick this book up. We have 5 courts in this. not kingdoms, but same thing. That's the same thing. We have 5 courts and everybody is equal and everybody is dangerous. So there is a competition in this one called the Fives, and the main character seems to be between worlds, like the upper class and the lower class, and she wants to train for this competition, which is an elite athletic competition. So if she wins, then she gets a chance of glory. I don't know what the glory is, but I'm assuming it's pretty good. So there's just lots of drama that follows that. We have friendships, we have the tearing apart of families, and then we have the plot for the main character to save her mother and sisters from certain death. So there's a lot of dark sort of themes going on in this one that just sound really good, but I'm so excited about this. You have no idea. So I would love to know if anybody has read this, because I haven't heard that many people talking about it. It is an older book now, but oh my god, I was so excited to find this in the store. So those are all the books that I managed to acquire in April. I'm really excited about all of them and I cannot wait to read some of them. I probably really could do with not buying any books for a while, but you know, my TBR will live. I'm sure it'll survive. I would love to know if you've read any of these or if you are planning on reading any of these. Let me know down in the comments below and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.